The movie begins with Ivan, a former Russian soldier separated from his wife, in a combat exercise with his fellow soldiers. He has brought his son, Nikita, to the exercise and makes him participate in the training exercise as a hostage. The day was Nikita's birthday, and after Ivan and his team completed the exercise, Nikita was happy and considered it the best birthday. But his wife arrives at the scene and confronts Ivan for taking him to the military station instead of the zoo. The next day, Ivan heads to the training station, where he and a couple of soldiers are briefed by Ivanich, an officer at the station. His former commander, Gray, and another soldier have been taken hostage by the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. The terrorists have sent video footage that shows a wounded Gray admitting to being captured. Ivanich then began further explaining the situation. A prisoner exchange was offered to the terrorists, but they refused and instead expressed that their only interest was money. The group is asking for $300,000 within 1 week for the release of the hostages. The terrorists have set up a meeting place, but the problem was that part of Syria lies in the jurisdiction of the United States military, with whom Russia doesn't have good relations. After the briefing, Ivan and Ivanich have a conversation about his ex-commander. During their discussion, Ivan reveals that he has not spoken with Gray in 2 years. This was because while Ivan was under the command of Gray, he refused a direct order during an operation in Africa. Ivan offers to help with the money, while Ivanich provides him with the contacts. In the next few days, Ivan goes to different places to collect the money, and people from the business world and some military personnel make contributions. With all the help he got, Ivan managed to collect $150,000. After having a nightmare about his past operation with his ex-commander, Ivan is determined to get Gray back. He cleans himself up, and with the help of his old friend, he goes undercover as a Latvian journalist working for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. He arrives at the Chkalovsky airport and goes into a military airplane with the Russian troops who are on their way for a search and rescue mission to Syria. On their way, Sergei, one of the soldiers, makes fun of him and nicknames him Malvina. Ivan plays along and introduces himself as a journalist. After they reached Khmeimim Air Base, Ivan continued to tag along with the soldiers, who now have switched to a military helicopter. He claims to have been asked to film the search and rescue operation. The Russian military officials were trying to get past the area unnoticed, but they were stopped by a United States military helicopter. While the Russian helicopter was attempting a maneuver, Ivan used this opportunity to jump into the water and swim to a shore. The Russian military troops immediately looked down to see Ivan, but they couldn't find him. They decide to leave the airspace after being given a final warning to turn back by the United States military. Ivan has made it to the shore with minor injuries. After he treats himself, he hits a ride into a Syrian town called Manbij. Then, he finds himself a translator while he poses as an American soldier. He meets a local Syrian, Asher, who helps him to secure a knife, a smartphone, a pistol with some ammunition, and a motorcycle for transport. Ivan decides to stay the night at Asher's place before heading out the next day. At night, while having dinner with him, Ivan asks him about a blown-up Russian convoy. Asher shows Ivan the place on the smartphone, but tells him he would not be going with him since the area is considered to be dangerous. The next morning, Ivan goes to the place dressed as the locals. He finds the burnt military vehicle along with some corpses of the soldiers. Then, he buries a remaining Russian soldier whom he found inside the vehicle, using a shovel he found nearby. While he was leaving the scene, he was spotted by a militia riding a pickup truck. He is chased into town until he reaches a bridge where a group of United States soldiers are passing by. He crushes in front of the troops and avoids being pursued by the militia. The United States troops, led by a soldier named Steve, immediately confront him and point their gun at him. After seeing his journalist accreditation and passport, he takes him into custody. Steve and his troops take Ivan to their base. At night, Ivan texts Sergei about the meeting place. Sergei replies to him with the meeting place, Ajin Isa. After verifying his credentials, Steve gives Ivan his papers back and offers him a ride to Ajin Isa. He arrives at the meeting point accompanied by Steve's men. Then, Ivan negotiates with the members of the terrorist group. They ask him to show them the money, but he firmly replies by saying he wants to see the hostages first. The terrorists comply with his demand and show him Gray and the other Russian soldier. Ivan gives them the money he had tucked on his waist, but the terrorists notice it was only half the money they agreed. Ivan tries to create a middle ground, saying it was all he could find in such a short time, and the terrorists decide to make a compromise. They decide to release one hostage for now, and they tell him they will give him the other one when he brings the rest of the money. Ivan takes Gray and brings him back to the United States military truck. Ivan goes back to try and negotiate another deal for the remaining soldier. He offers a prisoner exchange as an option to get the other Russian soldier released, but the terrorists reply by stating they are only interested in money and tell him to go back. Ivan, who had no intention of leaving without all the hostages, executes his other plan. He signals Gray, whom he told to be ready after he gave him a rocket-propelled grenade, to fire, and Gray launches the grenade against one of the enemy's trucks. Ivan shoots and kills 2 of the terrorists, while the American soldiers also open fire against the terrorists. After some shots were exchanged, Ivan and the Americans were victorious. As soon as the fight is over, Steve has a fight with Ivan, whose cover is blown after the fight. The action of Ivan was not liked by Steve, who was angry at Ivan for lying to him and getting them involved in a shootout, which resulted in one of his guys being injured. Ivan tells Steve the truth about himself and the hostages. He tells him that he did everything to rescue his ex-commander after being left with no option. Although Steve is angry at Ivan, he gives Ivan a package and lets him go along with the hostages. Ivan takes a pickup truck, formerly operated by the terrorists, and drives off. On their way, he introduced himself to the other soldier, whose name was Zakir. He notices that Gray is injured and tells Zakir to give him morphine from Steve's package, which contains some weapons and medical equipment. Zakir also binds Gray's wound with a cooling gel. They decide to go to a place called Aleppo, passing through Safir to avoid getting detected. After going a few kilometers, the car breaks down and Ivan gets out to fix the problem. While repairing the car, he asks Zakir what happened during the operation. He told him that they were ambushed on the way back from escorting a group of Syrian soldiers to a checkpoint, and the terrorists quickly captured them after killing everyone. They continue their journey after fixing the car and have a conversation about each other. The other Russian soldier's name was Zakir, a Chechnya-born Russian soldier. He was under the command of Gray when they were hit. Ivan, on the other hand, was stationed at Chechnya for a mandatory service for 1 year, and he was a prisoner for 6 months before he got released. At the time, Zakir was a young boy who lived in a village in Grozny. Ivan and Zakir have another problem. This time, the car was running out of fuel. They go to a nearby oil refinery. Zakir, who can speak a little Arabic because he is a Muslim, has a conversation with a local guy at the refinery and manages to get them a full tank for the car. They continue their journey, and at one point, Zakir spots a buried explosive that looks like a stone and prevents them from being blown up. Zakir credits this ability to his childhood years, where he had to learn because they were common in his village. Zakir takes his turn to drive, but he starts to fall asleep. Ivan orders him to stop and notices their tire is out of air, so they decide to call it a night and travel tomorrow. In the morning, they are confronted by a group of armed local people who notice their car. Zakir calms the people down and asks them if they have a hospital nearby. Then Ivan gives them some money and they lead them to their village. Meanwhile, the terrorists are tracking the car Ivan is driving using some device. At the village, they are introduced to a sheik, a leader of the village, accompanied by the local armed men. Zakir explains their situation and the sheik agrees to help them. Gray gets some treatment with traditional medicine and Zakir cleans himself up and gets a change of clothes. Ivan asks the leader of the village to get him some weapons and a change of tires. The sheik orders one of his men to bring them weapons and some fuel for their journey. Zakir finds some tires from the locals and they begin changing them. While fitting their pickup truck with the weapons they got from the sheik, Ivan gets curious about seeing a lot of children in the area and asks the sheik about the kids. The sheik responds to him saying the children are orphans who came from Yemen after escaping the horrors of the terrorists. Gray has woken up and talks to Ivan while helping him dress like the locals. Gray tells him that he still has not forgotten about Ivan disobeying his orders in the operation in Africa. Ivan tries to convince him, saying he did the right thing, but Gray shouts back, saying it was not his call to make. After Ivan and Gray ended their argument, one of the local men, who noticed the terrorists as he was passing by the oil refinery, brought news that the terrorists were looking for Russians and that they were coming in their direction with 6 armed pickup trucks. As a result, Ivan, Zakir, and Gray quickly depart from the village after paying the leader of the village and thanking him for his hospitality. Gray begins to fill the cartridge of a gun with bullets while Ivan searches for any tracking device that may be in the car and even stops the car to check if it is under the hood, but they couldn't find it, so they search the cargo bed. They discover something shocking. A little girl from the village who was rescued from bullies by Ivan was hiding at the back of the car. Gray manages to find what the terrorists were tracking in a metal box, and it turns out to be one of the phones of the terrorists that Ivan shot and killed back in, but it was too late. The terrorists had already spotted them, and they started to approach them at a high speed. They put the girl on a back seat, and Zion starts firing with the weapon mounted on the cargo bed, while Ivan drives as fast as he can. Then Ivan contacts Sergei the artist, the funny soldier he met while traveling with the Russian soldiers, and identifies himself as Malvina. Then he gives him their coordinates and tells him that he is heading to a place called Al-Thara, along with the hostages. Zakir, Ivan, and Gray make their last stand at an abandoned house that was destroyed in an attack, which was also the same place targeted for a strike. They draw the terrorists to an ambush spot using the phone. Zakir fires the first shot by launching a rocket-propelled grenade at one of their vehicles. Gray then drags himself to a hideout and starts firing a sniper, which causes the terrorists to retreat. Zakir and Ivan are shooting many rounds trying to cover Gray, who is now being specifically targeted because of his sniper. A strike team was coming to blow up the place, but they were pinned down by the terrorists. After ordering Ivan and Zakir to leave him, Gray makes the final sacrifice. He gets himself captured by the terrorists while concealing an explosive. When the terrorists begin to celebrate, Ivan detonates the explosive and kills them, giving Ivan and Zakir to escape from a strike. The strike eventually arrived, and the Russian helicopters bombed the place and destroyed everything. After the strike, Ivan, Zakir, and the little girl emerge from a smoke driving a pickup which is caught on fire, and the movie ends with the Russian military extracting them out of the area. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.